Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, a premier and quantum venture studio and family office located in Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which is sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GST that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. Today in GST, we have 180 companies in our portfolio, representing 73 countries around the world. I am honored today to be joined by a remarkable guest, Darren Kimura, the CEO of AI Squared, entrepreneur, inventor, investor, and leader with a proven track record of building and scaling companies across clean energy, cybersecurity, and enterprise software. Darren's founded and exited companies, ventures, raised over $350 million in startup equity, and created more than $1.1 billion in enterprise value. He's been involved in patents. He's done 14 patents, 3 IPOs, and 18 startups. Currently at AI Squared, Darren is leading the change in large organizations securely embed artificial intelligence into their existing workflows. And we know, folks, that the problem is infobesity. Remember, there's about 176 zettabytes of data on the planet Earth today. If we took DVDs or CDs and stacked them one on top of another, today it would go 128 times between the Earth and the Moon and growing at 69.6% per year. We have the problem of infobesity. And the thing is, Darren has ability to be able to solve by embedding the artificial intelligence in the workflows, transforming the way enterprises make their decisions. In this conversation, we're going to explore Darren's journey from founder to CEO, his insights on building trust in AI, lessons from scaling globally, and his vision for the future of AI enterprise in the AI. You won't want to miss this episode and the wisdom that he has to bring to us. And with that, I'm going to bring him here. Hey, Darren, how are you today?
Hi, Gary. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, fantastic. So I got my multi-agent large language model started already popping things out to me, and it's curious. So it's kind of like my grandmother, I told you. And it said, you've said trust is the last mile of AI. How do enterprises build that trust, especially when deploying AI in mission critical areas?
Yeah, one of the things I think that's really important about AI is reliability, making sure that it's there when you need it. So, when a end user, and I'll use that term likely in the course of this conversation, someone who's using AI at the end wants it to be there, it needs to be available. So that's probably the most important thing because today, some of those data pipelines, the sources to get the data into the AI models and into the results, it's not that trustworthy. So a lot of times what happens is the end user will go to find an answer and they'll get null results. It won't produce results. And as a result, they lose trust in it. They lose the confidence that it's going to be available to be there. That's one thing, just being available, being up when they need it to be there. I think the second thing is to be reliable, meaning that if you ask a question, you get the same answer, if not the same, very similar answers each time, as opposed to ask a question and get answers in completely different spectrums based upon what a model might be trying to emulate you, for example. So, seeing repeatability in the outcomes, I think, is really, really important. And those are things that we really work very hard at AI Squared to be able to deliver, in particular, some of those highly trusted, highly regulated type environments.
The one thing when I went down through in our models, I'm a humanistic clinical psychologist. So one of the things as a psychologist, and I came at this entirely different way. So I started talking about things like empathy and compassion, unconditional love, positive regard, those kind of things. Sometimes, Darren, when we're building these models, they're very pragmatic. And, humans don't even necessarily treat each other in a pragmatic way, right? There's a lot of, and I'm not sure we would want to be treated in a pragmatic way because then nothing good happens. And we look at it, when I started building empathy and compassion in the models, I started to get a more human-like feel from the models. It doesn't feel as sterile. In fact, right now, it's asking me to ask you some more human questions, human-like. It's very interested. And anyhow, when we're going down through these models, we're just at the beginning of a revolution taking place, and the technologies like yours to go out there it's going to be, in my opinion, everything's going to come together as one, because, I mean, you're a smart guy. Where are you getting your PhD, by the way? Are you at Stanford or
Claremont,
where?
Claremont Graduate University.
Yeah. So, imagine this. So you're a smart guy, but in your own personal cloud, you get about 300,000 items. The entire web in 1996 with 257,000 websites. You, Darren, have more information in your personal cloud than the entire web. The problem is Darren's trajectory is following the same trajectory of the World Wide Web. By that, I mean doubling every year. In 5 years with the Internet of Things, you're going to have 10 million items. Darren, as smart as you are, right? And I have the same issue. How many times the last 3 weeks somebody said, "Hey, Darren, I sent you a message. Did you get it? Where did you send it?" Right? I sent
Yeah,
it to
all
you.
the time.
Which one of the 7? I don't remember. Will you send it again? Because you don't even have time to look to find it, because it's so much of a problem. This is what I call infobesity. I've been writing for this about 10 years, right? About this challenge, because I said, this is the thing. In psychology, when we get so much stimulation and we're so stimulated, it becomes learned helplessness, because you get paralyzed. We're getting to that stage. People are using like WhatsApp to filter their email because they can't find it. They're creating groups in WhatsApp, right? There needs to be an entirely new domain using tools just like yours, whether it's on the edge, to be able to solve the problems, because the problem's everywhere. So, and it wants me to ask you a question. So we built an omni-channel engine, right? We believe that the omni-channel engines are going to be the path of the future. So I'm taking these engines that can be kind of like taken from one car to another car, and with the empathy and compassion and the multi-agent models all embedded as one. So it's asking me, do you successfully built and exited numerous countries across companies across clean energy, cybersecurity, and enterprise software? Do you think that everything is going to come together as one, and literally we're going to have one interface for everything in a not too distant future?
That is a great question, and the simple short answer
I'm
to that
going to
is
tell
I
it. I'm going to
yeah,
tell it.
go.
It just said thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. And you're right. I actually think the answer is yes. I believe, and this is what we're seeing in the work that we're doing at AI Squared. So maybe I could just provide a little bit of background on what we're
Sure.
doing at
Yeah.
AI
Yeah, go
Squared, because
ahead.
it provides some context. So what AI Squared, the history of the company, initially the founders had worked in this technology, working in the Department of Defense for one of the 3 later agencies, building secure, highly encrypted, trustworthy data pipelines in which you could run large language models to be able to produce results for analysts within the Department of Defense, right? Those types of users. And what we found was some of the tools and technologies that we created, which were specifically designed for defense type use cases, were also very usable in things like financial services, healthcare, highly regulated industries. And then, of course, as we began to work with the end users in those different organizations, we began to figure out ways to make it a little bit simpler to use, make it no code, or in some cases low code. So in the simplest form, what we do at AI Squared today is we connect to all of your data sources, and this could be anything from your Databricks or your Snowflakes, your SQL databases, your SaaS applications. These are all places you have data stored. Basic things like Google Workspace or OneDrive, Dropbox or Box, doesn't really matter. Even in Instagram, for example, or RSS feeds, we connect into all of those. We suck all that information back into our platform. We create a map of your data. So now we understand how you've got your data laid out, where
Are
your
you
data
doing a knowledge
resides.
graph? Is that a knowledge graph?
That's right. We do. Yes, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. Yes.
I started using those in 2016.
Oh, you're ahead of your time.
Yeah, it was a variational add-on coders, ladder networks, ontology, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly.
I was using that stuff then. And then semantic, well, I don't want to get into it. But
You're
anyhow, it's interesting.
You're exactly right. Those are all the different techniques that we use: ontologies, we use semantics, and spread them across building the knowledge graph, which allows us to be able to quickly understand, find your data, retrieve your data. Within the platform, you can bring models in, so large language models. You can use some of the existing foundational models. So we allow you to uh, select the models you want to use, or just bring them all in, even models that you might create within your organization. So AI Squared becomes a model library. And then through our workflow builder, we allow you to create things like guardrails, We do things like ethics and bias detection, hallucination detection. We can do masking for PII. There's a sandbox which allows a analyst and an administrator to review the insights before those insights are pushed to an end user, and then we allow you to push the insights into any application you already own. So these could be things, for example, you sold a company to Salesforce. We can actually build insights via a integration directly into your Salesforce page, which is from AI Squared. Now, the benefit of that, you could log into Salesforce and see your contact information and all of your history within the Salesforce ecosystem. But let's say, for example, you wanted to take some of that context, but it doesn't live in Salesforce. That's where AI Squared is very useful, because we can pick up all the information from your Salesforce page, whatever it might be there, contacts, past sales, etc., and use that information and go back into all of your different disparate data sources, run those different data sources into the model, and pull those results directly into Salesforce. So it creates this kind of end-to-end workflow that allows an end user to be able to get a lot more information than they could from the SaaS application by themselves. Now, how does all of that relate? And by the way, we call that the last mile. So we believe that what we're doing through the AI Squared offering is we're solving the last mile. Now, how does all of that relate to your question? Well, I think about the different vertical use cases as all being different types of models. So, where do you run those models? Well, basically in something like an AI Squared. So your singular interface could become a platform like an AI Squared or some other platform for that matter, but they have access to all your data and all your models. So your interface, again, is one single interface, and you have access to all of the information across your entire footprint.
Have you thought about, the problem about the infobesity problem, your same technology can be applied to solving the problem I just described to you in your own personal email. You know that, right?
So that sounds exactly right.
Seriously,
Yes.
Darren, what your solution is, if you take that away and take it in, the problem is companies, individuals have the problem with infobesity. And in another 2 years, it's going to be critical, right? And this is going to be a problem. It's already, people are shutting down. They're not checking their email. They don't trust the mail that comes because it could be phishing, or they have so many emails, they just don't have time. And so they're just letting it go. I don't know about you, but 3 years ago, I checked mine even more than I do now. Now it's like it's unreliable.
Infobesity is a great way to put it. There's just too much of it, and it's duplicative. A lot of it is garbage. Having systems automatically be able to scrape and determine what is useful, I think that's going to have to be a part of our future
in a hyper intelligent way. So not only scrape it, but it understands everything about Darren, the kind of things you want, the kind of things you need. It's like an assistant, an executive assistant on steroids, right? It knows what you want. What we've been able to do, by the way, just FYI, so we applied this to travel. So with one of the other companies, not using my prior patents, but I actually went down through and applied it to travel. Now imagine if you're flying from Miami to San Francisco. The system understands which seat you like on a plane. You like to be in first class on the right-hand side. It knows once you land, which person is going to Claremont that may be there, you may want to go out and have California rolls or go down to Nanking. It knows you like to play pickleball, or on the weekends you like to go up to Napa. It starts to understand you and treat you like your grandmother would treat you. It cares about you, have love. But these models, when you start to apply them in all different kinds of ways, imagine what the possibilities are. Because you've got the data coming out, you're able to understand it because you got the knowledge graphs, the ontology, the variational autoencoders, all that. But now you can start to make hypersense of it. Now Magic, you use an agentic AI to be able to go down through and solve some of the tasks, these lower level tasks that you don't need to solve. It knows what you want. And at the same time, it brings those high value tasks and puts them in front of you and say, Darren, here's a couple of recommendations. What do you think you want to do on this? Boom, 1, 2, 3, hit it, gone. Those kind of tools are going to be critically important, because I don't know about you, what you're building is going to there'll be two levels of society. There'll be corporations that are using AI to be able to have mastered it, to be able to help them make decisions. And they'll very, very quickly, and you already see it happening, the wealth gap goes wider, because the people that know how to master these tools become maestro in helping solve the infobesity problem. And when you're going down through with AI Squared, you're doing the same thing, because there are islands of automation that exist in these. Look at what happened. We couldn't give it a roll of toilet paper during the COVID because we didn't understand where the stuff was and we didn't know how to get it out. We couldn't get enough food. It's crazy. Here we are in this advanced society. We couldn't get a roll of toilet paper. I remember I bought it from a marine supply because I thought it was the only place I could get it. And it was like the one ply worst toilet paper I ever had in my life. It was like biodegradable on steroids.
But you got the toilet paper.
I got the toilet paper. What you're doing, though, think about it. This is solving, because in reality, Darren, infobesity is the number one killer. It is the killer of companies. It's going to be the killer of individuals and the people that don't master. So using agentic AI, for instance, in the model I talked about, to be able to go down through and understand you and to take care of those low-level tasks, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? And you've got the components, based on what I've heard already, to be able to solve some of these problems. And this is where I call them omni-channel engines, because that engine that you have can be deployed in all kinds of other ways that people don't think about it. This engine can be moved, whether it's edge, whether it's supply chain, whether it's global warming. There's all kinds of different places where it's all about managing the data and then making intelligent decisions.
Yeah, and I think what you said about agents is exactly right. I think that's where we're going to find the ability to combine all of the information, uh, and not just have an agent, but thousands of agents. And I like what you said earlier about things like empathy, because when you think about the future workforce, for example, because I think about this a lot, historically we were managing humans, and that required a lot of empathy, understanding, relating to people, communicating to them. Agents don't require a lot of that. Maybe yours do. It sounds like yours do, but maybe not all of them, right? You need to be able to understand data and explain clearly on where you're trying to go.
You know what, Darren, with your system, I just, this show's a little bit different than what I thought, but I love it because I had the head of the quantum lab at Harvard on there and 4-star, all kinds of people. But one of the things, think about this. I just wrote a paper and I said, what if we take Skinnerian operant conditioning and then Rogerian client-centered therapy, humanistic psychology, believe in the good, combine them and then tokenize it inside of the AI. We can create very compassionate, benevolent tools that can go out that care about humanity. My fear, I don't know about you, but my fear is that we're going to have these tools and we're going to say, listen, why do we need these carbon footprints on the planet that are just messing it up? And if we don't build these into the model, that's what's going to happen, because it's not about science, because it's empathy and compassion are a whole lot different.
This is a valid fear, because it's not a what if, it is an absolute. This will happen. So
it's going to happen, right?
So we don't build these agents with those characteristics, we're going to be in trouble, because they don't sleep, they don't need rest. They will just keep going.
They don't need rest. They don't destroy the planet. And I've seen, so my models, when I looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when I went to unconditional positive regard and Carl Rogerian psychology, existential, all this stuff, I started looking at that, but that's about a human. And we got to train it to be doing good things. It's like a kid, right? As a psychologist, I was a child psychologist, and I looked at it. If you train kids to do the right thing, most of the time they'll do it. But you're the one that's teaching. In fact, Dekai, I don't know if you know Dekai. I just was with him with Tim Draper, and his new book's about parenting. And I just wrote him some things about, take his model about you're parenting the AI. Essentially, that's what you're doing. You're teaching it.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing is today, especially we're training these agents to behave in the way we would want, no different than you would train your kid. They learn faster, right? Because
very fast.
and you can duplicate them and you can retrain them very quickly in that regard. But yeah, it's no different than raising a child. Absolutely. And that's kind of the era which we're in. It's still pretty early days, I think, for these, but we're learning as we go as well, right? How do we think about managing hordes of agents into the future? How do we translate that into becoming more efficient ourselves? right? And what do we as leaders of companies or managers need to think about differently now? I think that what's changing, at least from the workforce perspective, is that whereas in the past you would have middle level managers that would manage people, um, we're kind of going back to the beginning now, where every one of us has to also be an individual contributor. We have to have subject matter domain expertise because we have to understand what's going on, so we know that the agents are actually doing what we want. They can do it better, they can do it faster, but it still has to be within the parameters of what we expect them to be able to do. No different than training a child. So that's kind of where I think we are. And I think as a result of that, we're also realizing we have to learn about management differently. And that's what I'm very, very focused on these days, in particular with my PhD, is the school which I'm at, is where Peter Drucker taught. And Peter Drucker, if you recall, after World War II, he was the father of modern management. He worked for companies like GM and General Electric, et cetera. And through that work he did, he came up with management structures and things like MBOs. And I think a lot about what the principles that he created and talked about over 39 books, and how all of that will now change because of this AI, generative AI world that we're now entering, and also one with agents. We're no longer managing people, we're now managing these digital agents like we've been talking about.
We're starting. So I live in Palm Beach in Florida. I spend a lot of my time here in Palo Alto. But one of the things I've done with some of the high net worth, ultra high net worth families is they've gotten quantum resources, right? So commercial quantum resources. Now think about this. So when I take my multi-agent large language models and put them on top of a quantum computer, it's 100 million times faster, which means
Yeah.
what would take 10,000 years takes 200 seconds. These are real statistics there. And so, I told you about the cancer vaccine and some of the other things. I didn't know how to do it, and it told me exactly how to do it and who to go to, right? When I had stage 3 kidney disease and I said, what do I do? Because it's irreversible. It told me that mesenchymal stem cells from an umbilical cord most probably be able to do it. And it pulled up all the research. My multi-agent large language model pulled up all the research, consolidated for me so that I would understand it because it knows me, told me when I should get it done and everything, the cost, etc. A leap of faith. I did it. My stage 3 kidney disease, within 2 days after I got it, was completely gone. It's gone. It's back to normal. All the wrinkles went out of my face. Everything changed. My heart rate went from 77 to 68. Now imagine, why don't we use the same problem that you have, use these tools to be able to help us live better lives? Because there's going to be one interface, right? And that interface on my side is like my grandmother that loves me and cares about me. But we need those interfaces to help us deal with the data. When it all comes down to it, it's you or the company, but you need a single way to access everything.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm a big fan of conversational AI. We oftentimes think about this in terms of chatbots, but the chatbot of the future is going to be one where it's probably more multimodal, right? Something you can talk to,
Yeah,
maybe even be able
exactly.
to have things like the sensory, right? If you think about how humans interact with the world, we don't think about it in terms of text only, right? That's the way that searches today, largely. That's the way that most of what we do in AI is today. It's text only, but the future of that now becomes other things, right? It's senses, it's smell, things that we are not yet able to tap into. We don't have the ability to perhaps do that, or at least not commercially yet. So I think we have a long way yet to go to the point we can actually get to what we call AGI. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely on our way there.
So it just came up and it says for me to say, Darren, enterprise struggle with AI adoption. In your view, how do you go down through what's the biggest barrier in operational and AI, and more specifically, how do you overcome it?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it is the question of the hour. And just recently, MIT released a study, and they were saying that 95% of AI pilots never make themselves into production, which means only 5% do. And we spent a lot of time here at AI Squared trying to understand why that is. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And that study that they produced covers a lot of ground. But I think about it in terms of really kind of two things. I think about it in terms of one, ROI. right? Is this a effort that's large enough for an organization to be able to want to invest in and endure the pain in and go through change management in to do that, right? Is the result enough to compel them to do that? And I think a lot of the scattershot PLCs that were done because they're cool ideas. Wow, this is such an amazing idea. It could be great, but there's probably not a realistic ROI behind it. And as a result, they get shelved. So I think really understanding what will bring real value, and investing in that and ensuring that you have the right tools, the right, hardened data pipelines to be able to get it there, commercially available, cyber secure, highly usable at scale globally, right? These are all kind of buzzy terms, but these are the realities of deploying AI or any kind of IT technology, even enterprise software at scale in enterprises. You have to make sure that it's, cyber secure, it's hardened. It meets the, single sign-on requirements. It connects into the rule-based access control. These are all like the things that are hard to do, right? It's easy to just hand wave and, oh, we're going to do AI. It's going to be amazing. And when you actually get into it, you realize, wow, we've got to do all these things that at a depth that we may not have expertise for, because I'm a hospital, right? As a hospital, I'm not building enterprise infrastructure software. So this all kind of falls into category one, right? Making sure that the projects you pick have a viable ROI to be able to endure the hardships of them. I think problem number two is ensuring that AI projects are being deployed by the right teams. And what we've seen historically, at least over the last year and a half, is that a lot of these projects have been given to the innovation teams. So they're like little side projects, they're little lab projects. And as a result of that, when that lab project is done, there's not a logical, hand up saying, I will take this, I will own this for the
And
next
there's
10 years.
also
I will make sure.
political forces on the other side.
Yeah.
I have a former Bain consultant, and I have a software development group. I do a few $1 million a year. I just created it for my own kind of things. But one of the
Yes.
things I found is that, these corporations, if they don't innovate, they're going to die. And this isn't just, I'm not just saying this for buzzwords. I'm telling you directly. If they don't take AI and incorporate it in everything that they do in their corporation, nothing good's going to happen. You can't compete.
Yes.
One of
Yeah.
my friends told me he's had 370 employees in his company, and he put AI in 6 months ago. He's reduced his headcount down to 160. But here's the thing. He told people in his company what he was going to do, and that if they got up to speed on AI, that they would stay.
Mhm.
Only 160 got up to speed, and they got fired, right? So it's crazy. We need to use these tools to give us superpowers, or you're just not going to be able to compete, because the costs are going to be so low, right? That you're not going to be able to compete against them because you've got too much overhead.
Yeah, I also think in addition to that, it's also eliminating the human error component of it, being more accurate, being faster, right? There's so much there that we can capture through the use of AI technologies, even aside of elimination of jobs or whatever the case may be, just by doing better. Having, humans have bad days, right? Eliminating, that kind of up and down in the course of our humanity, which also makes us, uniquely human, right? Interesting, curious, creative. These AI models and agents don't necessarily have that, right? So, being correct and accurate all the time, that's kind of the dispassionate concept we talked about at the very beginning. That's so important with some of those things, right? When you want to produce a financial report for a publicly traded company, you need it to be right, and you need it to be consistent. And I recall not long ago, NVIDIA's 10K, their annual report came out, and these things can be hundreds of pages long. And they ran it through an AI, an LLM, and they found even some of the basic numbers in there were misrepresented 5, 10 times, right? And had they run that through AI, that wouldn't have been necessarily the case. So and of course, everyone is employing these technologies now to get better. But just think about it, before any of these technologies were even available, right? All of that required additional time, cycles, to produce those types of documents. And it's not just in financial reporting, it's even in research papers, it's in patents. I mean,
I
it's
agree. I
across
mean, there's a
everything that we
lot of
do.
And the other thing is consultants are going to be a lot different than they are now because you ain't going to need a lot of them to do a lot of work, right? By the way, so the AI just wrote me. It just wants me to ask you that we're going to come to we're at the top of the hour with the show, but it wants to know, and it said, you described the AI journey as a marathon, not a sprint. How do you personally balance endurance, focus, and strategy in your own leadership?
Yeah, I definitely think about everything first as a marathon. So, it's a long run. So these companies, I guess specifically is what I'm referring to, no matter what you want to build for, they're going to be long hauls. So you have to kind of think about saving energy to be able to complete a long haul. A long haul in this case might be 7 to 10 years. Obviously, it would be amazing if they were shorter, and I've certainly had some, and I'm sure you have as well, that were much shorter than that, but they're probably more the anomaly. So you have to prepare for that 7 to 10 year journey. Now, within that, you break those
So
into
it wants
yeah,
me to ask you another thing, right?
bring it.
So it's saying the 7 to 10 year journey. Here's what it says. It says, Darren, the average VC is between 24 and 34 years old. They've never built a company. They have degrees in finance for the most part. Only 10%, it says statistically, have built a company. So when you're going down through this marriage, they say that being with the VCs like being married. Then it comes back and it said, well, how would you be married to somebody that you only meet for about 3 hours before? And the question is how the model doesn't work. It doesn't seem to be effective. And it's just asking me, it says you were with Sway. You were with Sway. So it's
That's right.
popping the stuff out as we speak, right? So
Yes.
it's saying to me, what do you think about that? Do you think the model's flawed? That in reality, the situation is we got to change the model to be more precise. It can't be the situation. It's like going to a cardiologist, and you go into the cardiologist and you say, geez, I need something done with my heart. I need to have an ablation. And the cardiologist says, well, I'm a foot doctor, but I'll try. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Well, okay, so let's dive into that a little bit. So first of all, I was with Sway Ventures. This is true. I've also worked for Insight Partners, Anodyne Ventures, LDV Partners as well. So a few different venture and private equity funds over the course of my 30 plus years of career. The one thing I would say that maybe a little bit is different is yes, you are married in a sense, but in a typical financing, you're not just married to one investor. Like it's not likely that the one investor who comes into your seed round is the one investor who goes through your exit. You get married to a lot of, using that term, to a lot of investors over the course of that time. So maybe your seed round, you might have two investors. Your Series A, you might have two more investors, so four. Maybe your B, you might have another four investors. So that compounds over time. So it is true, they're invested in you. And you are, for the most part, kind of stuck with them for that period of time. There are some exits through things like secondaries where they could sell some of their equity to other new investors over that course of time. So again, unlike a marriage in that analogy, it's not exactly the perfect analogy, but each of them do typically have a horizon, which a typical venture horizon is about 10 years. Maybe it's 10 plus 2, so it's 12 years, something like that. So that 7 to 10 year cycle, I think, is still right. In other words, as a CEO or founder, you should probably be thinking about that 7 to 10 year cycle. And then what I would probably then do is break that into maybe sections, maybe four of them. And within them, prepare for little smaller sprints. So, and what those sprints are towards is some end goal. So it could be, for example, a financing cycle, right? So series seed to series A might be 2 years, A to B might be another 2 years, B to C. Now, AI is changing a lot of that. You are seeing companies go from B to C in 6 months or 4 months in some cases. But what I'm describing is more your traditional kind of life cycle. So again, when I think about that journey, I'm thinking about founding a company to roughly exit in about 7 years or so, a few maybe 3 or 4 financings in between, and then in those smaller subsections, sprinting towards an end goal, like sprinting towards a fundraise, which will then give you the metrics to be able to support the raise, get the investors, and then reset the clock, and then now creating a new kind of mini marathon, if you will, within the broader run.
No, it's interesting. It has more questions that had just popped out. I'm not because we're at the top of the hour, and I appreciate you taking your time. So closing thoughts and how do people get a hold of you? And Darren, if you want to stay on for a few minutes after we're done, we can speak if you got the time.
Absolutely, love to. Yes, so we're AI Squared, www.squared.ai. That's our domain. Feel free to hit us up there. And you can see some of our technologies on our site. Go to our knowledge base, for example. You can see our conversational AI chatbot and our documentation. Yeah, and I'm available on LinkedIn as well. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. Just put my name in, just like you see it on screen here, and I'd love to engage directly. Final thoughts, I think we are at the point now where rubber hits the road. We have to show how these models, how AI can actually deliver results. And in doing so, you want to work with hardened technologies that have been proven by some of the most rigorous buyers in the world, Department of Defense, some of the largest financial institutions. So companies like AI Squared could fit the bill for you. And if that sounds great to you, please reach out. We'd love to connect.
Thank you so much, Darren. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And thanks to all my others for joining one more time. GSD presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Take care, everybody. And thank you, Darren.
Thank you.